absolutely brilliant move by the Russian Federation, which just happened a few moments ago. Russia has just put the United States on the ropes, especially the Trump administration and the entire CIA. It has also exposed the Ukrainian side, which has tried to lie about the matter. In short, many from the Western media have been there claiming that Russia doesn't know how to play the media game and that, in fact, it has lost the conflict in terms of media coverage. But now it turns out that the Russian Federation is winning the war, not only on the ground, but also in the media field. How and what exactly has happened? Let's take a look at it right now. What has been this brilliant move that has allowed Russia not only to confront Ukraine, but also, I repeat, to put the entire Trump administration in a very uncomfortable position between a rock and a hard place? Let's get started. Stay until the end because you're going to be amazed. Here are the facts. The Russian Federation presenting the United States with proof that, indeed, the attacks on Vladimir Putin's residence in Izmanovgrad have taken place. The last thing we knew about them was that Ukraine was denying the facts. Then, well, Ukraine changed sides several times. Let's start first with this masterstroke by the Russian Federation. And because it is precisely a success, the main course, putting the entire Trump administration on the ropes with these particular images, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation handed over the results of the inspection of the Ukrainian drones to the United States military attachés in Moscow. Checkmate, Trump? To do this, they took them to the General Staff headquarters, where the head of the department, Admiral Kashchukov, handed them a flight controller, apparently taken from one of the drones. Chaklam. This is, in addition to the unit presented to the Americans, not just any unit, but an H-743 Wing V3. And yes, this is indeed the unit you can see now. Do you have it on your screens? And what are its particular features? And why did the Russian Federation hand it over to the United States? Let's go from the most important to the least. Every detail matters here. This is one of the most powerful commercial controllers, providing ultra-fast data processing for complex autopilot algorithms. The controller has extensive connectivity options, making it ideal for complex drone systems. If the controller itself has been physically preserved, which you can already see is the case, and it hasn't suffered critical damage, a large amount of data can be extracted from the board or the memory card slot, which will help reconstruct what happened. From there, you can extract the global positioning system coordinates, reconstruct an absolutely precise flight path, as well as the location and time of the drone's crash or attack. You can also extract the heading, orientation, roll, pitch, and yaw at every moment, at every precise instant. This is absolutely essential to understand whether the drone was actually controlled until the very last moment, or if at some point, it lost contact with the pilot. After this, the data can be visualized and graphs can be reconstructed, and graphs of all the variables can also be created. That is, to show exactly how the drone flew toward its target. And why are we saying here that with these images, the Russian Federation is making an absolutely brilliant move, standing up to Ukraine, and in some way also throwing a very costly dart at the United States? Basically, because of what we knew about the Ukrainian reaction regarding the attack that was carried out against Vladimir Putin's residence. It was that Ukraine changed its version up to 3 different times. First, they said that the attack had not taken place, then that it could have actually happened, but that maybe the drones were flying to a completely different place. There was also another version that the Russian Federation itself was using old footage. That is to say, Ukraine tried to mislead public opinion, and therefore Ukraine tried to sell these events. But Russia has presented what is the key evidence that you are seeing here on your screens. the Russian Federation would not only be making progress on the military front, but would also be making very significant advances in the media war, which in fact is often criticized as a very weak part of Russian policy at the international level. Look, the move has been brilliant, to say the least. First of all, Ukraine carries out these attacks. Secondly, Russia does confirm that they have taken place, but doesn't provide any more details. It gives Ukraine some time so that, in fact, the country itself starts to get tangled up in its endless versions. And to top it all off, believing the Ukrainian story, even the very one herself. The CIA reports that, indeed, apparently, it was practically an attack invented by the Kremlin. And Donald Trump even retweets a news story that was precisely related to this information provided by the CIA. In other words, when it seemed that the whole attack issue was absolutely settled, that it was almost as if Vladimir Putin himself had made it up. Then the Russian Federation comes along and says, here you have the much dreamed of flash drive, which is great. Actually, it's a flight controller. I'm handing it directly to you, United States. And not only that, I give it to you on video. I record it. I upload it to social media. In other words, I respond to you. I do it as publicly as possible. And from here, I force you to review it because you can see that it's intact. And let's see, what are you going to make up from now on? Because, of course, if the Trump administration has to deny the CIA, does it have to admit that the shadow United States government has more power than the White House itself? Or does it have to admit that the CIA has fooled Donald Trump? Or does it have to admit that the CIA has no damn idea of what's been going on? Did the CIA really not know about the Ukrainian attack? Or did it know about the Ukrainian attack and decided to cover it up? I mean, each new version here, whatever the truth and reality may be, whatever it is, the version that the United States chooses to show in the media leaves the country looking worse than the previous version. I mean, whatever they choose. Will the Russian Federation have won the game? On one hand, they completely neutralized the attack, showing the power of the Russian Federation and the control they have over key points, such as, indeed, the presidential residence. Secondly, they also showed absolute control over timing in media terms. In other words, Russia carefully measured the time it gave Ukraine to react, and also made it clear how Ukraine was changing its story, changing its stance. The air also gave the United States and the Western media a bit of time to come up with the most convenient version, the version that would be easiest to sell to the general public. And then it delivered what was the final blow. Now, the ball is in Donald Trump's court, and personally, Donald Trump has gotten involved in the matter. Since he tends to have a very quick finger, Donald Trump usually hits the key on Truth Social too quickly. And there are things he simply shouldn't retweet. This man should learn to keep quiet and should learn the basic rule that sometimes you look better when you're silent and also when you don't use your finger so much. In the end, things go better, but it's not that his finger is too quick. It's that he talks too much. And in the end, what happens is that because of this precisely, they end up making huge mistakes in the West and therefore in NATO, which the global South ends up taking advantage of. In this case, the Russian Federation, has handed over this flight controller. And now it forces the Trump administration to say something about it. And what if they don't say anything about it? Russia still has a lot of room to maneuver. It still has all the media influence. Because now the world, all of us, are waiting to see what the heck happens with this flight controller. It looks intact, apparently. So, what's in these images? That the United States is reconstructing exactly what happened? And look, what if the United States decides to let this go? The Russian Federation has already had access to this air traffic controller, and therefore it can do so perfectly well. That would be the most beautiful, brilliant, powerful, and potent finishing touch to this move. The United States says nothing. Let's imagine it. The United States says something, but it doesn't seem to make much sense. Then the Russian Federation says, remember I gave you the flight controller? It doesn't seem like you've known how to handle it very well. I don't know if it's that people at the CIA don't know how, Whatever the case, I'm going to give you the data now in an absolutely public and obvious way. That is, the ball is not only in Donald Trump's court, but now Donald Trump's court is, well, shaking. It's not just the roof now, the entire house is being turned upside down. Because Ukraine did more than attack Vladimir Putin's residence, a serious act for which it still must answer. Another fact that I think is another brilliant move. Russia hasn't responded in any way, nor has it launched an Oresnik. It's not just waiting. It's waiting to see what the Ukrainian reaction will be. It's waiting to see what the American reaction will be. And the answer? To take time. Yes, of course, because it will arrive exactly at the moment when it benefits the most, when it reaches the Russian Federation. And of course, if the United States takes too long, if the United States is not right, if the United States tries to lie about what's in that flight controller, the Russian Ministry of Defense will publish it. And with this on one hand, it will make it very clear, once again, whose side the truth is on. And furthermore, it will leave the United States exposed and therefore all of NATO. And it will reinforce the already very clear and well-known narrative that the Western media lies. And that in this conflict, which is supposedly a war between Russia and Ukraine, the side that is lying is NATO. And they are making up anything and everything to try to keep this war going for as long as possible. And the absolute highlight of this performance, which is absolutely brilliant, especially strategically, seems to be Russia. So tell me, what do you all think? Has she finally learned how to play the media game? Well, the highlight of this strategy will undoubtedly be now. Not only the publication of this information, but also the absolutely devastating response from the Russian Federation. I have no doubt whatsoever that it will indeed come. And that will definitely shake the very foundations, at the very least of Ukraine, but most likely of Russia and the entire North Atlantic Alliance.